Ryder King stepped into the dimly lit restaurant, where the gentle murmur of conversation and the soft clink of silverware felt worlds apart from the clipped efficiency of his office just hours earlier. As the commanding CEO of one of the most influential tech firms in the country, his presence carried an ease of control, each movement precise and purposeful. Yet beneath that carefully honed exterior lay a man weighed down by silence, a man who wondered if unconditional love could exist for him outside the ruthless corridors of corporate power. Sliding into a corner table near the window, Ryder allowed himself the rare luxury of stillness. He thought back to a time when his ambitions hadn't swallowed everything else whole, a time when laughter had been easier, when family dinners had not been replaced by quarterly reports. 4 years had passed since Anna Shepard walked away, leaving behind only a note he could never bring himself to throw away. The ache of that loss lingered like a shadow he could never quite outpace. A sudden sound, a lilting laugh carried by the evening breeze, pulled him from his thoughts. His gaze shifted, and the breath caught in his chest. Anna was there. The woman he had once built dreams around was seated across the room, her smile still capable of disarming him with a single glance. But it wasn't just her presence that pierced through him. It was the children beside her, Patricia and Patrick Shepard, 3 years old if Ryder's guess was right. The twins' faces mirrored Anna's vibrancy, but Ryder's focus snagged on Patrick's mischievous grin, so achingly similar to him. The boy's bright eyes and a pang of longing rushed through him, heavier than anything the boardroom had ever dealt him. Drawn forward by something deeper than reason, nostalgia, hope, and a need he could no longer deny, Ryder rose from his seat. Every step toward Anna's table felt like crossing a threshold between the life he had built and the life he once dared to imagine. The hum of the restaurant dimmed into irrelevance as past and present collided in that single, fragile moment. Anna's laughter faded the instant her eyes lifted and landed on him. For a heartbeat, she froze. Smile still curved on her lips, though her breath seemed to catch midair. The warmth in her face shifted into something quieter, wary, as if Ryder's sudden presence had unsettled the fragile balance she'd built around herself and the children. Patricia tugged at her mother's sleeve, oblivious, while Patrick dropped a spoon to the floor with a clatter that drew a few curious glances from nearby tables. Anna bent to retrieve it, buying herself a moment, but when she straightened, Ryder was already standing just a few steps away. "Ryder," she said at last, her voice softer than he remembered, touched with surprise, and perhaps a hint of steel beneath it. "I didn't expect to see you here." He searched her expression, trying to read the guarded light in her eyes. There was no anger, no overt welcome either, just a calm distance, as though she were measuring how much space she could safely allow him. "I wasn't expecting this either," he admitted, his voice carrying more honesty than polish. He let his gaze flick briefly toward the twins, then back to her. "But maybe I was meant to." Anna's lips parted slightly, as if she might reply, but she said nothing at first. Her hand instinctively tightened around Patricia's, the small girl looking up at Ryder with wide-eyed curiosity. Anna's silence spoke volumes, of wounds not yet healed, of a life she'd pieced together without him, and of the unspoken question, hovering between them, why now? For the first time in years, Ryder felt the certainty of his boardroom authority slip away. Here, in front of Anna, he wasn't the untouchable CEO. He was simply a man stripped bare by the sight of what he had lost and what he might never fully reclaim. Before Ryder could utter a word, Anna's eyes widened in surprise. With a sharp intake of breath and a quick glance at the twins, she cut in, her voice edged with caution. "Ryder, not now. Could we talk later?" Her tone was firm, but the tremor beneath it betrayed years of buried hurt and uncertainty. Ryder's jaw clenched, his stare darkening under the soft glow of the restaurant lights. "Very soon," he murmured, low and resolute. The words were a promise, laced with regret, with determination, with something deeper than either of them dared to name. The restaurant seemed to grow quieter around them, every clink of glass and hum of conversation muted by the weight of their unspoken past. That charged moment made clear one truth. Tonight was only the beginning, and the pull between them was far from over. Ryder could not endure another day without answers. Later, as the city's lights flickered across rain-damp streets, he found himself outside Anna's modest apartment building, a stark contrast to the gleaming towers where he reigned as CEO. He waited in the shadows, his pulse hammering until he was sure the twins were asleep. Then, with a steady knock, he broke the fragile silence of the hallway. When Anna opened the door, her expression faltered. Shock gave way to recognition, then to a complicated mix of longing and weariness. Ryder's face was taut, his eyes fierce yet pleading. "I couldn't wait any longer," he said, his voice heavy with desperation. Anna hesitated, then stepped aside, allowing him into the dimly lit living room. A tired smile tugged at her lips. "You haven't changed. You're still impatient, still relentless." Ryder's gaze bore into her, unflinching. "I need the truth, Anna. Why did you disappear with nothing but a note? And why—" His voice cracked, raw with anguish. "Why did you take my children without telling me? What did I do to deserve that?" Anna drew a shaky breath, her composure wavering. "Ryder, we had problems. You were consumed by power, by the future you were building. But it wasn't just you. Your father made it clear I was an obstacle. He threatened my family, had my mother fired, warned he'd destroy my father's career next if I didn't walk away. I didn't have a choice." Her voice trembled as she pressed on. "I didn't even know I was pregnant until weeks later. When I tried to see you, security turned me away. Every call I made was intercepted. Your father knew about the twins. He told me they were my problem, that if I ever came near you again, I'd be arrested." Silence swallowed the room. Each word fell like a stone, exposing years of manipulation, sacrifice, and loss. Ryder's chest ached, fury and sorrow churning in equal measure. "My father," his voice cracked, low and dangerous. "He destroyed us. He tore apart the only thing that ever mattered outside of this empire he chained me to." His fists curled at his sides, rage simmering in every muscle. For years, Ryder had blamed himself, his ambition, his distance, his blind devotion to success. To realize that Barrett's absence and Anna's vanishing act had been orchestrated by the very man who taught him to wield power, it was almost unbearable. Anna lowered her gaze, her hand brushing against the arm of the sofa as if steadying herself. "I didn't want you to find out this way, but you deserved the truth." Ryder paced once across the small room, then stopped, his expression raw, stripped of his usual composure. "All these years, I thought you chose to leave me, that I wasn't enough." He swallowed hard, voice thick. "And all this time, he made sure I lost not only you, but them." Silence swallowed the room. Each word fell like a stone, exposing years of manipulation, sacrifice, and loss. Ryder's chest ached, fury and sorrow churning in equal measure. Silence swallowed the room. Each word fell like a stone, exposing years of manipulation, sacrifice, and loss. Ryder's chest ached, fury and sorrow churning in equal measure. "And us?" he whispered, voice raw. "Was there ever really a chance for us?" Anna's eyes shimmered, her defenses faltering. Yes, Ryder, it was real. Though the gulf between them was wide, a fragile light glimmered beneath the weight of their pain. For the first time in years, hope flickered, uncertain, unsteady, but undeniably alive. His eyes flicked toward the hallway, where the twins slept, a longing breaking through the storm of anger. "Anna." His voice softened, vulnerable in a way he hadn't been since he was young. "Please, let me see them, just for a moment. I need to know them. I need them to know they have a father." Anna's breath caught, conflict flickering in her eyes. The protective instinct of a mother warred with the memory of the man she had once loved. Ryder, it's not that simple. They've only known me. They don't know who you are. Then let me show them, he urged, stepping closer. His hand lifted, almost reaching for hers, but stopped short. I don't want to steal their world, Anna. I just want to be part of it, to be their father in whatever way you'll let me. The silence that followed was heavy, yet laced with the fragile possibility of something new. Anna's lips trembled, her defenses softening, though uncertainty still clouded her face. Anna's hand lingered on the edge of the sofa, her shoulders rising and falling with the weight of her decision. At last, she exhaled a quiet breath and lifted her gaze to him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Come with me, but only tonight, while they're asleep. I don't want to overwhelm them. Ryder nodded, emotion tightening his throat. He followed as Anna led him down the narrow hallway, every step reverent, his heart pounding with anticipation. When she pushed open the bedroom door, a soft glow from a nightlight spilled across the room. Patricia and Patrick lay tangled in their blankets, their small chests rising and falling in unison, faces serene in slumber. Ryder froze in the doorway, the sight striking him with an ache so profound it nearly buckled his knees. He had faced ruthless competitors, billion-dollar deals, hostile board takeovers, but nothing had prepared him for this. His children, his flesh and blood. He stepped closer, his breath unsteady, and crouched beside the bed. His gaze softened as he reached out, stopping just short of touching Patricia's tiny hand. They're perfect, he whispered, his voice breaking. Anna stood quietly in the doorway, watching him with an unreadable expression. Ryder straightened slowly, his eyes glistening. Turning to Anna, he spoke with a conviction that surprised even him. I swear to you, Anna, I will be a good father. I will never walk away from them. From you, not again. Whatever it takes, I'll give them the life they deserve, the love, the protection, the security we were both denied. I'll fight for them every single day, his voice steadied, weighted with determination. They will never doubt for 1 second that I'm their father, and they will never ever feel abandoned. For a long moment, Anna said nothing, but her eyes shimmered, her lips parting as though the walls she had built for so long were finally beginning to tremble. In the quiet hum of the nightlight's glow, something fragile shifted between them, a promise not just spoken, but etched into the very air around them. Anna pressed her back against the doorframe, her arms wrapping tightly around herself, as if to contain the storm swirling inside her. His words, raw, unpolished, and heavy with sincerity, echoed in her chest, awakening feelings she had tried to bury for years. Her throat tightened as she whispered, Don't make promises lightly, Ryder. I've lived through what your family can do. I've seen the way your father wields his power, how he pulls strings as if lives were pawns on his board. And I can't, her voice faltered, trembling as she fought to steady it, I can't let Patricia and Patrick become casualties in that war. Ryder's jaw clenched, but his eyes softened with remorse. He stepped closer, careful not to overtake her space. Anna, I can't undo the damage he's done, but I am not him, and I swear to you, I'll never let his shadow touch them. They deserve freedom from all of that. From him. Her gaze dropped to the twins, sleeping soundly, their small bodies untouched by the weight of the truth that surrounded them. You say that now, she murmured, but your father's reach is long. He already tore us apart once, Ryder. What happens if he decides to do it again? What if he decides there? Leverage? The tremor in her voice broke into a choked breath. She brushed a hand over her face, blinking back tears. You don't understand the fear I've lived with. The fear of his control. Ryder's chest tightened, and he reached for her hand, not forcing, but offering. His touch was gentle, his voice firm. Then let me carry that fear with you. Let me fight him. You don't have to do this alone anymore, Anna. I won't let you. Her fingers trembled beneath his, torn between resistance and the undeniable pull of the man she once trusted with her heart. The conflict in her eyes was sharp, love buried beneath betrayal, hope fighting against fear. For the first time in years, Anna allowed herself to truly look at him. Not the CEO, not the son of a ruthless patriarch, but Ryder King, the man who had once loved her recklessly and was now standing in her living room, asking for another chance to love her family with the same reckless devotion. The following morning, sunlight poured through the modest apartment windows, painting the kitchen in warm hues of gold. The aroma of coffee and sizzling pancakes filled the air, mingling with the soft clatter of dishes as Anna moved about, her nerves betraying the calm she tried to wear. She had agreed, against the part of her heart that still feared Ryder's father, that Ryder could meet the twins over breakfast. Ryder sat at the small wooden table, hands clasped before him, trying to steady his breath. His usual armor, his tailored suits, his commanding presence in glass towers, felt useless here. This was different. This was fragile. This was everything. "Patricia, Patrick," Anna called gently. "Breakfast is ready." The sound of little feet came pattering down the hallway, quick and eager. The twins appeared in the doorway, still in their pajamas, their hair tousled from sleep. Patricia's eyes lit up first, wide and curious, while Patrick froze, his head tilted in study. Both children turned their attention to the stranger at the table. Anna crouched to their level. "There's someone I'd like you to meet." She hesitated, glancing back at Ryder, who looked as though the weight of the world rested on this moment. "This is Ryder. He's your father." For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy and expectant. Patricia blinked, then glanced at her twin, as if seeking confirmation. Patrick's eyes grew brighter, his mouth parting in surprise. "Our daddy?" Patricia asked softly, almost breathless. Ryder swallowed hard, his throat aching with the effort not to break down. "Yes," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I'm your daddy. And I've wanted to meet you my whole life." Patrick darted forward before Anna could stop him, throwing his small arms around Ryder's waist. The man's composure shattered in an instant. He lifted his son into his arms, hugging him fiercely, as if making up for every lost year in one embrace. Patricia joined in seconds later, her tiny arms wrapping around his neck. "Daddy," she whispered, as though tasting the word for the first time. "Are you staying with us forever?" Ryder's breath caught. He glanced at Anna, whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Turning back to the twins, he cupped their cheeks gently, his hands trembling with reverence. "Yes," he said, his voice steady, certain. "Forever. I promise you I will never leave you. You'll always have me, no matter what." The children beamed, their joy uncontainable, their voices overlapping with questions. "Will you play with us after breakfast? Can you read us stories? Do you know how to make blanket forts?" Their laughter filled the room, bouncing off the walls, washing away the heaviness of the night before. Ryder chuckled through tears, nodding. "All of that and more. Whatever you want, we'll do together." Anna stood by the counter, her hand pressed to her mouth, her heart torn between fear and hope. She had dreaded this day, worried that the truth would hurt the children. But watching them cling to Ryder, their little faces alight with wonder and belonging, she couldn't deny the truth blooming in her chest. For the first time in years, her family didn't feel fractured. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the life they all longed for was finally within reach. The morning sun crept through the towering windows of King Global's headquarters, spilling gold light across glass and steel. Ryder King's stride was steady, but charged with fire as he pushed open the door to his father's office. The room was vast, meticulously modern, every line sharp, every corner cold. Just like the man behind the desk, Barrett King sat with his usual unshakable composure, a silver pen poised between his fingers, as though signing contracts mattered more than blood. His expression was cool, calculating, eyes that saw markets and mergers, not hearts and families. "Father," Ryder began, his voice tight with restrained rage, "I saw Anna yesterday, and I met Patricia and Patrick. My children. She told me the truth, why she left and why I never knew they existed." Barrett didn't flinch. His tone was clipped, dismissive. Everything I've done has been for this company. Your emotions, Ryder, have always been distractions. That woman and those children were nothing more than obstacles. Inconveniences to your future. Ryder's jaw locked, his pulse thundering. Inconveniences? The word cut from his mouth like a blade. He slammed a hand against the gleaming desk, the sound echoing in the cavernous room. They are my children, my blood. You hid them from me for 4 years. You stole my chance to be a father, to build a family. And for what? A legacy? A balance sheet? Barrett's eyes narrowed, his voice calm but edged like steel. You were destined to lead, not to be weighed down by sentiment. Family ties weaken men. I made sure nothing compromised your path. Ryder leaned forward, his fury sharp and unyielding. No, you didn't protect me, you controlled me. You used your power to strip away the only people who ever gave my life meaning, outside of this damn office. You reduced my children to liabilities, as though love itself was a risk to be eliminated. Barrett's expression hardened, the faintest flicker of irritation passing across his features. This is the burden of leadership, Ryder. Sacrifices must be made. Anna understood that, even if you cannot. Ryder's laugh was bitter, hollow. No, Anna was forced into silence because you threatened her family, because you wielded power like a weapon. She bore that burden alone while I lived in ignorance. That's not leadership. That's tyranny. The air in the office grew heavy, charged with years of unspoken battles. Ryder's voice dropped, low but resolute, carrying the weight of his vow. You took 4 years from me, Father, but you won't take another day. Patricia and Patrick are mine, and I will raise them with love, with truth, and with the freedom you never gave me. If you try to interfere again, Ryder's gaze bore into him, unshaken. I will burn down this empire before I let you destroy my family. Barrett leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. For the first time, the great patriarch of King Global found himself staring at a son no longer under his command, a man who had chosen love over legacy. Barrett King's lips curled into the faintest suggestion of a smile, sharp, cruel, a mirror of the cold power he had wielded for decades. You always did underestimate me. Ryder, he said smoothly, folding his hands on the desk. You think walking into my office and spouting noble words changes anything? Anna Shepard was nothing but a complication when I pushed her aside, and she remains one now. Do you really think I'll let her and those twins unravel everything I've built? Ryder stiffened, every muscle coiled, but his father's next words chilled him to the bone. As of this morning, Anna no longer works as a medical courier. I made one call, and the company she worked for severed her contract. And if I decide, her next employer will mysteriously lose interest too. You see, Ryder, I can erase her stability with the flick of my wrist. I always could. Ryder's fists tightened until his knuckles whitened. You wouldn't dare, Barrett leaned back, utterly calm. And I've also arranged a reminder. A man I know has already been inside her apartment. Nothing serious yet. Just a warning. But if you test me again, that fragile little world of hers could collapse entirely. The words landed like a blow to Ryder's gut. Rage ignited in his chest, but more than that, fear. Anna, Patricia, Patrick, without another word. Ryder turned and stormed out of the office, his father's cold voice echoing behind him. This company is your inheritance. Ryder, choose it or lose everything else. Anna's hand shook as she dialed Ryder's number. Her voice cracked when he answered. Ryder, someone broke in. I came home and the door was open, the drawers pulled out. Nothing was taken, but I know it wasn't random. And this morning they called me from the courier service. They fired me. No explanation. Ryder's blood boiled, his chest tightening as the truth became undeniable. It's him, he growled. It's my father. He's trying to scare you. But I swear to you, Anna, he won't touch you again. Ryder, she whispered, her voice wavering. I don't know if I can fight him. He's too powerful. He always wins. Not this time, Ryder said firmly. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you and the twins, tonight. By midnight, Anna stood in Ryder's penthouse, sleek glass walls opening to a glittering skyline, a stark contrast to her modest apartment. The children had fallen asleep in the guest room, worn out from the move, their favorite stuffed toys clutched in their hands. Anna sat on the edge of Ryder's leather sofa, her face pale but composed, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting danger to follow them. Ryder crouched in front of her, his hands resting gently on hers. "You're safe here." "No one gets in without my say-so. Security is doubled. My father's reach is long, but it won't extend past these walls." Anna shook her head slowly. "This isn't a life, Ryder. I don't want to live looking over my shoulder." Ryder's gaze hardened with resolve. "Then we don't hide. We fight back," she frowned, confusion flickering in her eyes. "Fight back how?" "He's Barrett King. He owns half the city, which means he has weaknesses," Ryder said, his mind already spinning through possibilities. "Every empire has cracks. I know his better than anyone. He built this company on control and intimidation. But there are things he's buried, things that, if exposed, could destroy the foundation he's so desperate to protect." Anna studied him, torn between fear and hope. "And what if he comes after us again?" Ryder's jaw tightened, his voice steady. "Then he'll learn what it means to go to war with his own son. I've played his game my entire life, but now it's on my terms. I won't just protect you and the twins, Anna. I'll end his hold over us, for good." He stood and turned toward the window, the city glittering beneath him like a chessboard, waiting for its next move. Behind him, Anna rose quietly, her hand brushing his arm. "Ryder," she whispered, her voice soft but fierce. "Don't lose yourself to his world. Don't become him just to fight him." He turned, cupping her face with a rare tenderness. "No, I'm not him, and I'll prove it, to you, to our children. My father built his empire on fear. I'll build something stronger, on love, on truth. That's how I'll win." Anna's breath trembled. But for the first time in years, she believed him. As the night deepened, Ryder King stood at the edge of his penthouse, eyes on the horizon, already planning his next move against the man who had stolen years of his life. The war with Barrett had begun, but this time, Ryder wasn't fighting for profit or power. He was fighting for his family. The following day, the boardroom was cloaked in a tense silence. The air was heavy with expectation, every executive present sensing that what was about to unfold would reshape the very core of King Global. Ryder King stood at the head of the table, his stance firm, his gaze unflinching. For years, he had been the heir who followed orders, the son groomed to inherit an empire at the cost of his own heart. But not today. Today, he was something else entirely. "I have something you all need to know," Ryder began, his voice clear, steady. "For 4 years, my father has hidden from me and from this board the existence of my children. He used their lives as pawns to manipulate not just me, but the future of this company." A ripple of shocked murmurs spread across the polished table. Some executives shifted uncomfortably, others exchanged wide-eyed glances, and a few leaned forward with keen interest. Ryder pressed on, his voice gathering force. "This is more than a personal betrayal. It is a violation of trust, a stain on the integrity of King Global. This company was built on innovation and vision, not secrecy and coercion. Therefore, I am calling for a vote to remove Barrett King from the board. His actions have proven that he places control above loyalty, manipulation above truth." Several members nodded cautiously, their pens scribbling notes, their eyes darting between father and son. Ryder's expression softened just slightly, though his words carried a sharper edge. "And furthermore, I have directed our legal team to begin amending the bylaws of this company. My children, Patricia and Patrick, will be recognized as heirs to King Global. This is not about expanding power. It is about reclaiming what was stolen from me and ensuring that love and truth stand at the foundation of what we build going forward." For a long moment, silence blanketed the room. Then came a voice, sharp as a whip. Barrett King leaned forward, his knuckles white against the mahogany table. His voice rose like a thunderclap, commanding and venomous. "You think it's that easy to strip me of my throne?" he barked. "I made this company, Ryder. Every brick, every deal, every legacy, you owe it all to me. You're nothing without my name. You are not ready to lead, and you will destroy yourself in the process. This company is mine. It will always be mine." Gasps and whispers swept through the boardroom, the spectacle of a father and son locked in open war captivating every witness. But Ryder didn't falter. He stepped forward, closing the space between them. His presence no longer the deferential heir, but the defiant man. His voice dropped to a low, searing whisper only his father could hear, though the tension in his words vibrated across the room. "I will do anything to protect my family," Ryder said, his tone calm but filled with fire. "Even if it means destroying you, father." Barrett's jaw twitched, his eyes narrowing into slits of rage. For the first time in years, the balance of power in the room had shifted, not toward wealth or dominance, but toward something far more dangerous to a man like him. Love unshakable, and loyalty unbought. The boardroom buzzed with electricity, the cracks in Barrett King's iron grip widening. Ryder knew the war was just beginning, but in that moment, he also knew he had won the first battle. The morning after the storm in the boardroom, Ryder reached out to Anna with a quiet determination etched into every word. He needed her to know the steps he had taken, not as a CEO, but as a man desperate to reclaim the family that had been stolen from him. They met in a tucked-away corner of a cozy cafe, far from glass towers and boardroom politics. The air smelled of roasted beans and fresh bread, the warm clatter of cups around them providing a gentle shield of anonymity. Over steaming mugs of coffee, Ryder laid everything bare. "I've amended the bylaws," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Patricia and Patrick are now named heirs to King Global. Their future is protected, no matter what my father does next." He paused, his gaze softening as it found hers. "But this isn't just about bylaws or money, Anna. It's about you. About them. I want to take care of all of you, if you'll let me." Anna listened, her fingers worrying at the edge of her napkin. Gratitude warmed her chest, but worry lingered like a shadow. "Ryder, I know what this means. You risked everything for us. But how do we tell the twins? They don't know the weight of any of this. What if your father retaliates? What if his threats become real?" Ryder reached across the table, his hand warm and certain against hers. His touch grounded her, even as his words carried steel. "He won't touch you. He won't touch them. I promise you, Anna, I will stand in front of any storm he tries to bring." The days that followed were unlike anything Ryder had ever known. For years, his life had been measured in deadlines, contracts, and board votes. But now, his calendar was filled with something far more profound. Small moments with Patricia and Patrick. At first, he felt out of place in Anna's world. His penthouse, all glass and steel, didn't look like a playground or a safe haven for children. But Patricia quickly claimed the large living room as her stage, spreading crayons and coloring, books across the pristine coffee table, while Patrick turned the long hallway into his personal racetrack for toy cars. Ryder didn't stop them. He welcomed it. For the first time, the sterile silence of his home was replaced with laughter and life. One evening, Ryder found himself on the floor, surrounded by a small army of blocks. Patrick tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, help me build a castle." The word "daddy" still felt new, raw, and breathtaking every time he heard it. Ryder smiled, rolling up his sleeves, and began stacking the blocks alongside his son. His usual precision, the same hands that had signed billion-dollar deals, fumbled as towers tumbled. Patricia giggled at his frustration. "You're not very good at castles," she teased, her voice full of mischief. Ryder chuckled, shaking his head. "Maybe not, but lucky for me, I've got the best teachers." Later, Anna peeked in from the kitchen to find Ryder crawling across the floor with a blanket draped over his shoulders, roaring like a dragon while the twins defended their fortress with pillows and squeals of delight. The sight stole her breath. The man who had once been carved from stone, hardened by duty and control, was laughing, genuinely, freely, as his children tackled him to the ground. Bedtime brought its own lessons. Ryder had never read a storybook, aloud, but Patricia insisted on choosing one and handing it to him each night. His deep, Steady voice filled the children's room as he read about magical lands and daring adventures. Halfway through, Patrick usually climbed into his lap, eyelids heavy, while Patricia nestled at his side. By the time he closed the book, both were asleep, their heads resting against him. Ryder would stay there in the dim glow of the nightlight, holding them, as if afraid the moment might slip away if he let go too soon. Anna watched from the doorway more than once, her chest tightening with emotion. She could see the truth in Ryder's eyes. This wasn't a performance or a fleeting effort. This was a man remaking himself, trading boardroom victories for bedtime promises, finding joy in the smallest of things. One Saturday morning, Patricia climbed into Ryder's lap at the breakfast table, syrup smeared across her cheek. "Daddy, are you going to stay forever?" she asked, her eyes wide with trust. Ryder bent his head and kissed the crown of her hair. "Yes, sweetheart, forever, no matter what." Patrick, munching on a piece of toast, grinned. "Does that mean you'll come to my school when we have family day?" Ryder laughed softly, his throat thick with emotion. "I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world." In those quiet, ordinary moments, blocks, bedtime stories, sticky breakfasts, Ryder discovered a part of himself he never knew he'd been missing. He wasn't just a CEO, he was a father. And no storm, not even Barrett King's fury, could take that from him now. Still, as Anna looked out the window that evening, the skyline glowing like a crown of steel and glass, she knew storms had a way of returning. For now, though, she let herself rest in the fragile peace they had built, knowing that love was giving them all the strength they would need for what was still to come. Anna watched with cautious wonder. Each time she caught Ryder crouched on the floor, playing cards with Patrick, or patiently listening to Patricia chatter about her favorite colors, the edges of her old doubts softened. He wasn't the man she had left behind, the man buried under ambition and shadowed by his father's control. He was different now. He was trying. One Friday night, after the twins had finally fallen asleep, Anna joined Ryder on the balcony of his penthouse. The city stretched out beneath them, glittering in the warm summer air. Ryder stood with his hands resting on the rail, his suit jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up. He looked less like the polished CEO and more like the man she had once fallen for, a man searching for something more than power. "They adore you," Anna said softly. Stepping beside him, Ryder turned, his gaze catching hers. "I adore them," he replied simply, his voice rough with sincerity. "They make me see everything differently. Every deal, every battle I've fought, it all feels meaningless compared to them, compared to you." Her breath caught at the earnestness in his tone. She had spent years convincing herself his love had been a casualty of his father's empire, that she had been nothing but a distraction. Yet here he was, laying his heart bare under the city lights. "Ryder," she whispered, "I don't know if I can just forget everything that's happened. Your father, the threats, the lies, the years we lost." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle, steady. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let me prove that we can build something stronger out of what was broken. I don't want to go through life knowing I let fear and control dictate who I could love. I don't want the twins to grow up thinking power is all that matters." Anna's chest ached with a mix of longing and fear. She studied his face, the lines of exhaustion softened by the tenderness in his eyes. "And what about us?" she asked. "What are we to each other now?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "Partners, not just in raising them, but in everything. I want you by my side, Anna, not as someone hidden away, not as someone forced to sacrifice for me, but as my equal, my anchor, the person I can build the future with." Her eyes glistened. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine it, not just surviving the storm, but weathering it together. A life where she wasn't looking over her shoulder, where Patricia and Patrick grew up surrounded by love instead of fear, where Ryder wasn't chained to his father's legacy, but free to create his own. Anna pressed her forehead to his, her whisper carrying the weight of both hesitation and hope. Then let's take it one day at a time. No promises we can't keep, just one step forward, together. Ryder's arms slid around her waist, pulling her close, his voice soft against her hair. One step forward, that's all I ask. In the quiet glow of the city skyline, Anna felt something she hadn't in years, trust slowly returning. And though the shadow of Barrett King still loomed for that one night, they stood as a family rediscovering not just love, but partnership. The boardroom was heavy with tension, the air charged like a storm on the edge of breaking. Barrett King, sharp-eyed and unyielding, stood at the head of the polished table, papers spread before him like weapons. For decades, he had ruled King, global with an iron fist, and though he had once stepped aside to let his son lead, he had never truly relinquished his grip. Now he had come prepared to reclaim everything he believed was his. What Barrett did not know was that Ryder King had been preparing for this moment far longer than he realized. 2 years earlier, Ryder's suspicions had been stirred when a loyal board member, in a hushed whisper after a routine meeting, revealed a truth Ryder had long suspected. Barrett had his own team embedded within the company, eyes and ears tracking Ryder's every move. It had been a covert war ever since, a shadow battle of secrets and counter-secrets. Ryder understood that if he was to survive his father's looming counterstrike, he needed allies of his own. So, quietly, methodically, Ryder built a team. They weren't the usual corporate sharks or high-priced attorneys his father expected. Instead, he handpicked a group of interns, each with specialized skills hidden beneath unassuming titles. A gifted digital forensics student, a data engineer with a knack for finding patterns buried deep in financial ledgers, a quiet observer who doubled as a surveillance analyst. To Barrett, they were nothing, overlooked and underestimated. To Ryder, they were his sharpest weapons. Now, on this decisive day, Barrett spread his dossier across the table, page after page of fabricated evidence designed to paint Ryder as reckless, unfit, and corrupt. He spoke with the commanding tone of a man used to obedience, his words laced with contempt. This company cannot afford a leader blinded by emotion and weakened by sentiment, Barrett declared. Ryder has compromised the very stability of King Global. Here is the proof. The executives leaned in, murmuring as they flipped through the documents. On the surface, it looked damning. Carefully constructed timelines, falsified communications, financial missteps attributed to Ryder. Barrett's trap was meticulous, designed to gut his son's credibility in one devastating blow. But Ryder had come prepared. Calmly, he rose from his seat. He did not shout. He did not need to. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice even, "what you're holding are lies. Fabrications designed by a man who cannot stand that his era is over." He laid his own set of documents across the table, each stamped with irrefutable digital timestamps, each cross-checked by neutral servers that Barrett could not tamper with. The intern's work was flawless. Every accusation Barrett had leveled crumbled under the weight of Ryder's evidence. Transactions Barrett claimed Ryder mishandled were shown to predate Ryder's involvement. Emails Barrett presented were revealed as forgeries, proven by forensic analysis of metadata. The boardroom fell into stunned silence. Finally, one of the senior members spoke, her voice steady but firm. "Barrett, the integrity of this company cannot survive both your schemes and Ryder's exposure of them. You have two choices. Remove yourself from the board immediately, or we open a full investigation into every one of your dealings, past and present." The ultimatum hung in the air like a hammer about to fall. Barrett's jaw tightened, but for the first time he faltered. His carefully constructed empire of intimidation was cracking. Ryder held his father's gaze, his voice low and final. "You taught me that business is war, Father. But what you never understood is that I've stopped fighting for power. I fight for my family now. And that makes me stronger than you'll ever be. The boardroom, once Barrett's fortress, had become his battlefield of defeat. And though the corporate war was not yet finished, the balance of power had shifted. For the first time, Ryder stood not just as his father's son, but as his equal and his rival. Late that evening, the apartment was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights filtering through the sheer curtains. Anna Shepard rose when she heard the knock, expecting Ryder's familiar presence on the other side. But when she opened the door, her breath caught in her chest. Barrett King stood there, his cold gaze froze her in place, the weight of his presence pressing into the small hallway. Without a word, he pushed past her, the brusque shove knocking her slightly aside. His heavy footsteps carried him into the living room, where Patricia sat curled on the rug with her doll, and Patrick built a tower of blocks beside her. Barrett's eyes narrowed, his face carved into a mask of disdain. "This," he muttered, his voice low and venomous, "is the cause of all my problems." Anna's heart pounded as she hurried after him. "You have no right to be here." He turned sharply, his glare like a blade. "I warned you never to come near my son. You defied me, and now you and these children will pay for it." The venom in his words cut through the fragile peace of the apartment. Patricia looked up, her wide eyes confused, clutching her doll tighter. Before Anna could speak again, the tense silence was shattered by the sudden pounding of boots in the hallway. Ryder's private security team surged into the apartment, followed closely by uniformed officers. Shouts of command filled the space as Barrett was seized, his furious protests echoing off the walls. "I haven't done anything," Barrett roared, struggling against their grip. "You have no right." Ryder stepped in then, his presence commanding, his voice low but sharp enough to silence the room. "Enough!" He fixed his father with a gaze that no longer carried fear, only resolve. "There are surveillance cameras installed here. Every threat, every word you just spat at my family, I heard it all. This time, there is no escape." Anna hurried Patricia and Patrick into the safety of their bedroom, shielding their ears from the chaos. Her heart raced, torn between relief and fear, as the sounds of Barrett's rage filled the apartment. Outside, the night erupted into flashes of light. The waiting press, already circling after whispers about Ryder's children had begun to leak, caught every second as Barrett King, once the untouchable patriarch, was escorted from the building in disgrace. His shouts to the cameras, his desperate claims of innocence, were drowned out by the crush of reporters and the cold commands of the officers. Ryder stood tall in the doorway, the chaos swirling around him. This was not just a confrontation between father and son anymore. It was the public unraveling of a legacy. Inside, Anna held the twins close, whispering assurances over their trembling shoulders. She knew the battle was far from over, that Barrett's influence and cunning would not disappear overnight. But as Ryder crossed the threshold back into their home, his expression firm, his arms wrapping protectively around them all, she allowed herself, for the first time in years, to believe that his vow was real. The battle lines had been drawn. The world was watching, and the downfall of Barrett King was no longer just a private war. It was a reckoning that would echo far beyond the walls of their apartment. In the quiet aftermath of chaos, Ryder sat across from Anna in the soft glow of her living room. The apartment was hushed, save for the faint ticking of a clock and the distant hum of the city beyond the windows. His eyes, dark with the scars of betrayal yet softened by resolve, held hers with unflinching sincerity. "Anna," he began gently, his voice low and steady, "I never stopped loving you. With my father behind bars, I finally have the power to reshape this company. But when that's done, when it's stable, I'll step back. Because what I really want is to spend every moment with you and the twins. That's the life I want." Anna lowered her gaze, fingers tracing the edge of her coffee mug. Years of fear, heartbreak, and loneliness pressed against her chest. "I want to believe you, Ryder," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I want to be with you. But the fear I've carried for so long, it runs deep. How do I know I can trust this new beginning?" Ryder leaned forward, his hand covering hers, warm and grounding. "Then let me prove it. I'll wait, Anna. I waited 4 years without even knowing the truth. I can wait a little longer for you to feel safe again. In the meantime, I'll be here every day, caring for Patricia, for Patrick, and for you. Not because I need to, but because I want to, and true to his word. Ryder showed up, not with grand gestures, but with the steady presence of a man who refused to let go again. One chilly afternoon, Anna fell ill with a stubborn cold. Her body ached, and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. Without hesitation, Ryder stepped in, moving through her home with a quiet ease that surprised her. He brewed tea and stirred hot soup on the stove, filling the small kitchen with warmth. When Patricia and Patrick came tumbling in with restless energy, Ryder knelt to their level, his voice patient and calm. "Your mom's not feeling well. Let's help her by being quiet today, He carried Patrick on his shoulders down the hallway, tucked Patricia in with her favorite stuffed bunny, and read them both a story until their laughter faded into soft breaths of sleep. Then, returning to Anna's side, he draped a blanket over her and pressed a cool cloth to her forehead. He didn't hover, didn't make speeches. He simply stayed. Through the fever, through the restless hours of night, Ryder was there, a constant anchor beside her. When Anna's eyes fluttered open in the early dawn, she found him still sitting in the armchair, head tilted back, half asleep but refusing to leave her side. The sight cracked something deep within her. Proof that his promises were not empty words, but lived in the smallest acts of devotion. For the first time in years, the walls around her heart began to crumble. She whispered softly, almost to herself, maybe we really can begin again." Ryder stirred, his eyes opening, and when he looked at her there was no hesitation, only the steady fire of a man who had found his home. The winter sun spilled through the windows, casting long golden beams across the living room floor. Patricia and Patrick sat cross-legged among a scatter of crayons and paper, their drawings covering the coffee table. Ryder knelt beside them, sleeves rolled up, carefully coloring within the lines of a clumsy castle Patrick had sketched. "Daddy, you missed a spot," Patricia giggled, pointing at a patch of blank paper. Her pigtails bounced as she leaned closer, clearly enjoying the chance to correct him. Ryder laughed softly. "Guess I'll never be as good at this as you two. Maybe I need extra lessons." From the kitchen, Anna leaned against the counter, watching the scene with quiet wonder. The sight of Ryder, once the guarded CEO, now sitting cross-legged on the floor with marker smudges on his fingers, was almost surreal. For so long, she had braced herself against disappointment, but the consistency of his presence was chipping away at the walls she had built. Patrick suddenly dropped his crayon and looked up at both his parents. "Mommy?" His voice was thoughtful, almost hesitant. "Why doesn't Daddy live here with us all the time?" Anna's breath caught. She crouched beside him, smoothing back his hair. "Daddy has his own place," she said carefully. "But he comes to see you whenever he can." Patrick frowned, unconvinced. "But if he lived here, we could have breakfast together every morning. And he could help me with my spelling words." Patricia nodded eagerly, her eyes wide with innocent determination. "And he could tuck us in every night, not just sometimes. Daddy should stay here forever." Their words, simple and unfiltered, cut straight to the heart of the room. Ryder froze, his hand stilling over the paper, his throat tightening at the raw purity of their wish. He looked up at Anna, their eyes locking across the small space between them. Anna's cheeks flushed, her heart twisting. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The children's hope was so pure, so unburdened by the fear and scars of the past, that it disarmed her completely. Ryder set down the crayon and pulled the twins close, kissing the tops of their heads. "You know what?" he said softly, his voice husky with emotion. "That's something I'd love more than anything. To stay with you forever. To be here every morning and every night." Patricia's face lit up. "Then do it," she said, as though the solution was that simple. Anna swallowed hard, blinking back tears as she watched her children cling to Ryder, the longing in their voices, the hope in their eyes. It was something she couldn't ignore. They weren't asking for power or money or security. They just wanted their family whole. Later that evening, as she tucked them into bed, Patricia whispered, "Mommy, Daddy loves you. I can tell. Can you love him back so he stays? Anna kissed her daughter's forehead, her chest tight with emotions she could no longer hide. Love is a complicated sweetheart, she murmured. But as she stepped into the hallway, she found Ryder waiting, leaning against the doorframe. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Anna saw not just the man she had once loved and lost, but the father her children so clearly needed, and the partner she herself had secretly longed for all these years. In the quiet of that moment, she realized the twins weren't the only ones wishing for a second chance. The apartment had grown quiet after the children drifted into sleep. Patricia's stuffed bunny lay beside her on the pillow, and Patrick clutched his favorite toy car under the blanket. Their steady breaths filled the room with the peace of innocence. Anna lingered in the doorway for a moment, watching them with a tenderness that softened her features. When she turned, Ryder was already there, leaning against the hall wall. The low light from the lamp cast shadows across his face, highlighting the exhaustion in his eyes, but also the quiet warmth that hadn't been there years ago. They're incredible, Ryder said softly, almost reverently. I don't know how I spent so many nights not knowing they existed. But I do know. I never want to miss another. Anna's throat tightened. She looked at him, the man who had once broken her heart through absence, now standing here with a steadiness she hadn't dared to hope for. They adore you, she whispered. More than I think you even realize. He stepped closer, hesitant but sure. And what about you, Anna? His voice was low, raw with vulnerability. Do you think one day you could feel the same way about me again? Her breath caught. For years, she had rehearsed all the reasons she couldn't. Her fear of his father, the walls she built to protect herself, the deep scars of abandonment. Yet here he was, the man who had stayed at her side through illness, who laughed on the floor with crayons, who tucked their children in as though it was the most sacred duty in the world. I don't know how to just forget the past, she admitted, her voice trembling. But I can't deny what I feel when I see you with them. And when I see you with me. Ryder reached for her hand, his touch careful, almost reverent. I don't want you to forget, he said. I want to rebuild, brick by brick, moment by moment. I want to be the man you once believed in and more. For you, for them. Her eyes glistened as she searched his face. The silence between them stretched, charged with unspoken longing and the weight of years lost. Then, as though drawn by a force greater than either of them could resist, Anna took a small step forward. Their lips met in a kiss that was both tentative and aching with years of restraint. It wasn't rushed, wasn't desperate. It was the quiet, reverent kiss of two souls rediscovering what they had lost, of love resurfacing through trust, through sacrifice, through hope. When they parted, Anna's forehead rested against his, her breath unsteady. Ryder, what if we fall apart again? He brushed his thumb across her cheek, his voice steady, certain. Then we'll pick up the pieces, together, because this time I'm not letting go. In that fragile, luminous moment, Anna felt the years of fear and anger begin to dissolve. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that love, true, lasting love, was not just possible but already blooming again between them. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, the air humming with quiet conversations and the clink of champagne glasses. It was one of King Global's most anticipated corporate galas, the kind of evening where reputation was currency and appearances shaped alliances. The press was out in full force, cameras flashing every time an executive entered the room. For years, Ryder King had walked into events like this alone, his presence commanding but always solitary. Tonight, that would change. The room hushed slightly as he appeared at the top of the grand staircase. Not alone, but with Anna at his side, her hand resting gracefully on his arm. She wore a simple but elegant midnight blue gown that accentuated her poise, her nervousness tempered by the quiet strength in her eyes. Just a few steps behind them, Patricia and Patrick clutched small hands together, wide-eyed at the spectacle of glittering lights and tuxedos. Whispers spread quickly. That's Anna Shepard and the twins. Are those Ryder's children? What does this mean for the company? Ryder paused deliberately at the landing, letting the world take in the sight. Then, with calm assurance, he guided Anna and the twins down the steps. His hand never left hers, and when Patricia grew shy under the flashes of cameras, Ryder crouched briefly, smiling at her in a way that was tender yet protective. The photographers captured every second, proof that this was no rumor, but a declaration. When they reached the floor, one of the board members approached, eyebrows arched in surprise. "Ryder," he said carefully, eyes flicking toward Anna and the twins. "I wasn't aware you would be bringing guests." Ryder's jaw set with quiet resolve. "They're not guests," he said evenly, his voice carrying just enough to draw attention. "This is my family." He looked down at Patricia and Patrick, his expression softening. "My children. My future." A ripple of astonishment moved through the crowd. Some faces showed disapproval, others thinly veiled curiosity, but more than a few lit with admiration. The press surged forward, cameras snapping in rapid succession. Anna, though nervous, lifted her chin proudly. She had feared being thrust into the spotlight, but the way Ryder stood beside her, unflinching, protective, proud, steadied her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a shadow hiding from Barrett King's wrath. She felt like she belonged. Later in the evening, Ryder took to the podium for a brief speech. His eyes swept the crowd, his voice strong and clear. King Global has always stood for legacy. But legacy isn't built on fear or manipulation. It's built on truth, on strength, on love. Tonight, I stand here not just as your CEO, but as a father, and as a man who chooses to build a future not of shadows, but of light. His words struck deeper than any business pitch could. The cameras captured the moment as Anna stood with Patricia and Patrick at her side, their small faces glowing with excitement. Ryder extended his hand toward them, the gesture unmistakable. "My family," he finished, his voice unwavering, "is the truest legacy I will ever leave." The applause was immediate, sweeping through the room like a tide. For the first time, Ryder had claimed his family not only in private, but before the world. Whatever storm still loomed, the line had been drawn. Anna felt tears prick her eyes as the twins clapped along with the crowd, their laughter ringing like music. For once, she didn't feel fear. She felt pride. Pride in him. Pride in them. Pride in a new beginning that no amount of power could erase. The gala had ended, but Ryder wasn't ready for the night to close. With Patricia and Patrick asleep under the watchful eye of a trusted nanny, he asked Anna if she would join him somewhere quieter, somewhere just for them. She hesitated at first, still overwhelmed by the evening's boldness, but there was something in his eyes, an earnestness she couldn't turn away from. They found themselves later that night in a small rooftop garden restaurant tucked above the city skyline. It wasn't grand or ostentatious, just soft lantern light, the distant hum of traffic, and the scent of jasmine drifting through the air. Ryder had chosen it deliberately, knowing Anna would feel more herself away from the press, away from expectations, as they sat across from each other, the city stretching beneath them. Ryder studied her quietly, as though memorizing every detail of her presence. Finally he spoke, his voice low, rich with emotion. "Anna, there's something I've kept inside for far too long." He leaned forward, hands folded on the table, gaze unflinching. "I never let myself get serious with any other woman, not once. Even when my father tried to parade candidates in front of me, like business deals waiting to be signed, I refused. Because none of them were you, and because, no matter what happened, I never stopped loving you." Anna's breath hitched, her hand trembling slightly as it rested on her wineglass. She had imagined words like these before, in the lonely hours of the night, but hearing them now left her raw and unmoored. "Ryder," she whispered, her voice breaking. He reached across the table, his hand warm over hers. "I want a future with you, Anna. Not just you, but Patricia and Patrick too. I want to wake up every morning with all of you under the same roof. I want us to be a family in every way that matters." His throat tightened, but he pressed on, every word carrying the weight of years lost. And I want more than that. I want us to grow. Maybe someday, marriage. Maybe even more children, if that's what we dream together. But only if you see it too. Tears welled in Anna's eyes, spilling down her cheeks before she could stop them. For so long, she had carried doubt like a shield, protecting herself from disappointment, from pain. But here was the man she had once loved, the father of her children, laying his heart before her, with nothing to hide. "I thought I lost you forever," she admitted, her voice trembling as she squeezed his hand. "I thought we were broken beyond repair. But watching you with the twins, seeing the way you fought for us, it's changed everything. You've changed everything." She paused, tears streaming, her lips trembling into a fragile smile. "Yes, Ryder, I see a future. I don't know how easy it will be, or how long it will take to trust completely again, but I want to try. With you, with them, with us." Ryder's chest swelled, relief and love surging through him as he rose from his seat, pulling her gently into his arms. She buried her face against his chest, her tears dampening his shirt, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to lean fully into him. He kissed the crown of her hair, whispering into the night, "Then we'll build it together, brick by brick, step by step, forever, Anna. I'll never let you go again." Under the soft lantern light, Anna lifted her face to his, and their lips met, this time not with tentative caution, but with the passion of two hearts that had finally chosen to beat as one again. 1 year later, sunlight streamed through the arched windows of a small countryside chapel, painting the aisle in soft shades of gold. The scent of roses and lavender drifted through the air, mingling with the hushed excitement of family and friends who had gathered to witness what once seemed impossible: Ryder King and Anna Shepard, finally promising forever. Ryder stood at the altar in a tailored navy suit, his posture as steady as the life he had rebuilt. Yet as he watched the chapel doors open, his breath caught. Patricia and Patrick walked hand in hand, ahead of their mother, each proudly scattering petals down the aisle. Their laughter filled the space, the innocence of their joy drawing smiles from every guest. And then, Anna. She stepped forward in an ivory gown, simple yet radiant, her veil catching the sunlight like a whisper of hope. Ryder felt his heart tighten, overwhelmed by the sheer truth of the moment. The woman he had lost, the children he had once been kept from, were all here now, walking toward him, his family, his future. When she reached him, her hand slipped into his, warm and trembling. The minister began, but Ryder barely heard the words. All his focus was on Anna, the woman who had endured threats, fear, and years of separation, yet still stood here with him, ready to begin again. "I, Ryder," he began, his voice steady though his eyes glistened. "Take you, Anna, to be my partner, my love, my anchor. I vow to stand beside you not just in triumph, but in hardship, to protect you and our children with everything I am, and to never let the shadows of the past dictate the brightness of our future. You are my heart, my home, my forever." Anna's tears slipped free as she spoke her vows, her voice shaking but clear. "Ryder, I once believed we had lost everything, but you showed me that love can survive even the darkest storms. I vow to walk with you in honesty, to raise Patricia and Patrick with you in love, and to build a home filled not with fear, but with joy. You are my second chance, my partner, my forever." When they sealed their vows with a kiss, Patricia clapped her hands, shouting, "That's my mommy and daddy!" Patrick grinned wide, tugging at his uncle's sleeve, announcing proudly, "We're a real family now." Laughter rippled through the chapel, but Ryder only heard Anna's soft laugh against his lips. For the first time in years, his life felt whole. The shadows of Barrett King were gone. What remained was love, stronger than power, deeper than fear, and bound to last a lifetime. 5 years later, the King estate was no longer the sterile, echoing space it once had been. Laughter filled every corner, echoing down hallways, spilling out into the sunlit gardens, weaving itself into the very walls. Patricia and Patrick, now 8 years old, darted across the lawn in a game of chase, their footsteps thudding against the soft grass. Their shrieks of laughter carried on the breeze as Ryder jogged after them. Pretending to be a dragon, his deep roar making them squeal with delight. From the porch, Anna rocked gently in a chair, cradling their newest child, little Grace King, just 6 months old. The baby cooed in her arms, wide eyes following her siblings' every move. Anna's heart swelled as she watched them all. The family she had once feared would never be whole. Ryder finally caught Patrick and hoisted him into the air, spinning him around until both were breathless with laughter. Patricia clung to his leg, demanding her turn. When Ryder finally collapsed onto the grass, both twins tumbled on top of him, giggling uncontrollably. Anna walked toward them. Grace nestled against her shoulder. Ryder looked up, his face flushed but glowing with happiness. "You see this?" he said between breaths. This is my empire, and it's the only one that ever mattered." Anna knelt beside him, brushing his damp hair back, her smile tender. "You built it well," she whispered, her eyes shining. He reached up to touch her cheek, his hand warm and steady. "We built it," he corrected softly. Patricia leaned close, wrapping her arms around Anna's waist. "Mommy, Daddy, we're the happiest family ever." Anna pressed a kiss to her daughter's head, her heart too full for words. And in that golden afternoon light, surrounded by the laughter of their children, Ryder and Anna knew love had triumphed over legacy forever. The end. Hope you enjoyed this love story of renewal and hope by Green Tea Tales. Help our channel to grow with like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe.